In the headlines, wanted man dies after being shot by police. Marijuana advocates tell government to stop stalling the movement.
So we have 4 separate organizations that have all submitted recommendations to the government, and the government wants to form yet another commission.
And drafting of policy for infants and young children.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good evening. It is Monday, the 29th of July, 2019. Welcome to the Hot 7 Nightly News. We're on Flow, channel 117, also being simulcast on Kiss FM 105.5 and 105.9. You can also watch on our website, www.caribbeanhottv.com, or on our free Caribbean Hot FM mobile app. I am Solange Alfred, standing in for lovely St. Amy Joseph. Dead is Dylan Fontenelle, a 37-year-old resident of Boisden, who succumbed to his wounds after being shot by police in connection to several outstanding warrants in his name. Acting Corporal in the press office of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, Anne Joseph, gave details which led up to the incident.
On Saturday, July 27, 2019, officers attached to the Choiseul Police Station proceeded to Boisden in Choiseul in search of Dylan Fontenelle, in connection with warrants of arrest in the first instance for causing damage to property, a bench warrant for the offense of burglary, and several other reports made against him. The suspect was able to flee his residence and evade arrest on that day. During the course of June 2019 and July 2019, a total of 26 reports were made against Dylan Fontenelle, including damage to property of 5 separate homes, damage to motor vehicle, wounding, arson, threats, as well as assaults. 8 of the said reports were made on Thursday, July 25, 2019. Officers were seeking to apprehend Dylan Fontenelle in connection with these matters and had made numerous attempts to arrest him prior to this incident.
Joseph says after returning to Fontenelle's residence on Sunday, 28th July, police found the suspect armed with a metal rod and a saw.
He proceeded to strike an officer with that rod several times. Non-lethal means were used in an attempt to subdue the suspect, but to no avail. Officers continued their efforts to apprehend the suspect for about 20 minutes, but he continued to attack officers, at which point live rounds of ammunition were discharged in his direction. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force wishes to dispel rumors that family members as well as members of the community harbored Dylan Fontenelle. These individuals, we must say, cooperated fully with the efforts of officers in taking him into custody. This matter remains under investigation, and we do wish to extend our condolences to the family and friends of the deceased.
The Royal St. Lucia Police Force press officer says medical attention was sought for the suspect who succumbed to his wounds at the St. Jude Hospital. Over the weekend of the 26th to the 29th July, a total of 93 ambulance calls was responded to by the St. Lucia Fire Service. Of those emergencies, Assistant Divisional Officer SLFS David Antoine provides details for a motor vehicular accident which took place along the VG Highway and more.
A motor car seemed to have lost control and veered off the roadway. On arrival at the scene, emergency personnel assessed and treated the 2 occupants for their injuries. As a consequence, one was transported to the Victoria Hospital for further medical attention. The fire department also responded to 3 fire calls during the weekend. There were 1 electrical pole fire and 2 vehicular fires.
Antoine says emergency services were also provided to Dylan Fontenelle, a 37-year-old of Boisden, who was shot by police after refusing arrest and succumbed to his wounds at the St. Jude Hospital. In other news, Chairman of the Cannabis Movement, Andre De Keris, says although progress seems afoot in the movement for the decriminalization and ultimate legalization of marijuana, the pace remains slow. He says commission after commission has been formed, yet still St. Lucia remains stagnant on a decision as to the next steps with cannabis.
The Minister, Mr. Bradley Felix, took the issue to Cabinet the other day, Monday gone, and certain things were accepted by his colleagues and certain things were rejected. One of the major changes that need to take place is the amendment in the Misuse of Drugs Act, and they didn't want to go that far as yet. They want it to come from another commission. And we have a little issue with that, the fact that CARICOM has already had a commission and has given their recommendations. The government has paid the Malaysian consultants Permandu to come up with recommendations, which they have had. They've submitted their recommendations to the government. We, the cannabis movement, have submitted our white paper, as we had promised Cabinet that we would submit it to them with our recommendations. And the government themselves had formed a commission with Mr. Michael Gordon as the chairman, Mr. Phillipsy was on it, Dr. St. Rose, Dr. Raymond, Mr. Michael Andrew, Dr. Andre Matthew, Ms. Barbara Vargas, all these people were on the commission, and they came up with recommendations and submitted it to the government. So we have 4 separate organizations that have all submitted recommendations to the government, and the government wants to form yet another commission.
Adding his voice to the conversation, President of the Ayanola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari, Aaron Alexander, endorsed the views of the Cannabis Commission.
We would like to go a step further and really call out the government for their hypocrisy and call them out also on all this, the way they stall in the process. Because, I mean, Mr. DKRS mentioned earlier about Mr. Bradley Felix, Minister Bradley Felix. This is a minister I always view as the conscious minister, you know, due to the fact that many times when he makes an appearance, you know, whether it be on a political platform, etc., the music that accompanies him is always a music of consciousness and a music of upliftment, you know. So I always big him up on that. And, you know, for him to have the courage to bring it to Cabinet, that was also a very good thing. But the government seemed to just be, you know, it's like spinning top in mud, you know, and we're getting nowhere with this government. I have no confidence in this government that even though the new commission that they're looking to set up now comes back with recommendations, I have no confidence that they will actually act upon it, because we've seen time and time again the failure to do so.
The outspoken Alexander questioned the motives of another commission, saying it's an ultimate waste of time and monies. However, he says he is willing to give the government the benefit of the doubt and will be monitoring for advancements as to the decriminalization and legalization of cannabis. In other news, health and wellness of minors begins at the kitchen table. On Monday, 29th July, Ministry of Health officials as well as key stakeholders participated in the Infant and Young Child Feeding Policy Workshop to ensure the development of the policy. Officials say validation of the policy and evaluation of current practices are high on the agenda for assessment. Marlon Clovis gives us those details.
The Cocoa Palm Conference Room hosted key players in the health sector looking to outline strategy for the Infant and Young Child Feeding Policy. Pan American Health Organization PAHO Food and Nutrition Advisor for the region, Audrey Morris, says justification of the policy is the next step as officials look to improve upon as well as to implement best practices into the policy.
This is a workshop, and the workshop we're actually going to be working on the National Infant and Young Child Feeding Policy. The policy has been in draft, and the assistance being given to the country is being given by the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, as well as CARFA, the Caribbean Public Health Agency. And we are working together in helping to develop this policy. The policy is at a stage now where we need to validate it. So we're looking at we have certain objectives already listed. We're looking at how the policy is going to be put into practice, what is going on already, and how the already ongoing activities will fit into the policy.
Morris says an action plan will give officials direction as to top priority issues. She says capacity building as well as resource management will also be looked into.
The policy needs to fit the needs of the country, right? And it also needs to fulfill certain objectives and certain targets that the policy has. And which the country has really agreed to on the world stage. So, for example, there's a global target with regards to breastfeeding of infants, and all countries are trying to get 50% of their infants being exclusively breastfed by 2025. and the country is not there yet. So that's something to work towards. Looking at the young child, as well as those going up to 5 years old, there's a target for wasting, which means thin children. There's a target for stunting. So all of that has to be put in context and look at what is on the paper. Will it really achieve these national targets?
Taking into account the Sustainable Development Goals of the island, Morris notes SDG number 12, responsible consumption and production, as well as SDG number 2, zero hunger, will be factored into the policy. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Marlon Clovis.
You're watching the Hot 7 Nightly News. When we come back, breastfeeding to save the planet, the public opinion on public breastfeeding, and G4S security guards back to the negotiating table. That and more when we return.